Now that we've got our content area successfully reading information from the database, let's see how we would go about doing the first part of CRUD, creating. As a simple step, let's start by making a jumping off point for us. We're going to go to the bottom of the navigation menu, right here, and let's just simply put in a BR tag followed by a link, ahref equals, and we're going to come back to what's inside of it. Now this can be just something like add a new subject. And I'll go ahead and put a plus sign in front of it just to make it super clear that it's not part of the menu, that this is something different. And the action that it's going to execute will be a page. And the page that it's going to load up is going to be something different than we've had. It's going to be new_subject.php. We don't need to set it any values. We don't need to give it any kind of an ID because we're creating it from scratch. So I'll save that. We go back in our browser, take a look at our work. There it is. Add a new subject. And it's a link. And the link will take us to a page that doesn't exist yet. So let's create that page now. So we'll go ahead and start a new page. And I'm going to save it inside Widget Corp in the root. And instead of staff.php, it's going to be new subject.php. So that's just a new blank page that I've saved in my directory. So let's figure out what we need to put in there. Go back and look at this same page that we've been working with. We're going to want the connection and the functions. So we'll copy that over. And then let's see. We're going to have a navigation again. So we'll go ahead and take all of this. And we're going to want a header. And we're going to need the structure and all of the navigation. So there we go, down to there. And wow, so all the way down to page. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and just take the whole thing. I'll do select all, copy it, and then we'll just paste it all over here. And we'll take out what we don't need. Well, let's see, for example, we aren't going to need the new subject because we're already on the new subject page. So we'll take that out. And all of this is inside the body here. That's going to be different. So we'll take that out. And then we've got our footer at the bottom that's going to close our database connection and put the nice HTML footer down there. So that's a nice, simple page for new subject. And that should work if we try and load it up. Let's go ahead and test that to make sure that our assumption is true. Yes, it is. And nothing came up over here. Now notice something, which is that I just repeated myself in a very big way. All of this that's up here, getting the selected page, is on both pages, as well as all of that navigation. So those are definite candidates to drop over into another function. Let's do that real quick. So we'll take this function right here. I'll just copy it. And I'll hide these files here so I can get to this and get to functions. There we are, inside our functions. And I'll just roll that one up so I have some room to work. I'll paste this in, and we're going to need to bracket it with function. And we're going to call this find selected page. Now I know it's actually finding a subject and a page, but I'm going to go ahead and just say find selected page is the name of the function, and that'll work for both. And then we'll just indent that a bit, just put some extra tabs in there, close my function. There we go. So now it's using the superglobal get, and since that's a superglobal, that's going to be available to me. That's not a problem. And then what I'm going to have to do, though, is pass these values back out of there to make sure that they're available. So let's go ahead and actually make those globals so that they'll be available when we get back outside. So global SEL subject and global SEL underscore page. There, that'll make both the subject and the page available once we exit out of this function. Then I can just move back over to my content. I'm going to close up for now so we don't mess with that. We're going to stick with a new subject. And I'm going to replace all of this with that simple little function that's just going to say find selected page. And I don't need to actually catch anything, any return values here. Now, this isn't returning anything, and we want to be careful about that with functions. Functions don't have to return something, but we want to be aware when they're not. This is just going to set some variables that then we can use. So we don't have to catch it. We'll just simply try to set them and see whether it succeeds or not. So that's great. That should help us out. Let's try that and see if that works. New subject, Perfect. Still works. Let's go ahead and try and put it on our other page and see if that works too. So I'll just copy find selected page, and let's get back to content.php. We'll go up here and we'll just replace all of that with our new single-lined command. And we can actually even streamline this further if we want by putting it on a single line. Wow, look at that. We've made that a whole lot smaller. So let's try that page out, make sure we didn't break anything there. If we click around in here, nope, all still seems to work just fine. Okay, so that was a definite improvement. Now what about the navigation? That's a much bigger project. Let's go ahead and see if we can tackle it. We're going to make a new function. So I'll just start down here, function, and I'm just going to call my function navigation. And that navigation function is going to need a couple of things. It's going to need to know the selected subject, and it's going to need to know the selected page. Now I'm using the same variables there for the argument names that I'm using as, the global values for SEL subject and SEL page. I don't have to. So let's go ahead and just try and grab all of this code from everything that we're doing for the navigation. And there we are. Go all the way from the UL, and let's see if we can drag all the way down to that second UL, all the way down here at the bottom. There we are. That's the one I want. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut that. Just cut it all out and see if I can just drop it in here. Perfect. Now we're going to have to do some cleanup to this because we're inside PHP now by default. So instead of just outputting HTML, we're going to have to do some quick conversions on this. We'll make that into subjects. We don't need our open PHP tag. We're already inside PHP. We'll get all subjects, sure. Then we can go ahead and go through each of the rows. So that's going to work. Okay, everything looks like it's going to work fine there. And then just down here at the bottom, we don't want to drop out of PHP. Instead, we'll need to make the same kind of change here for echo. All right, so now let's see if we can call that function. I'm just going to copy the whole thing, including the arguments. Since I happen to use the same argument names, I can do that. And let's put that inside PHP tags, navigation. Save it. And this is a new subject that I'm working in. We know that content works. We haven't messed with that. So let's see if it works over here. New subject still works. That looks great. So let's go back and try and put that same function, navigation, over into content.php. So we're going to take all of this that's here. Actually, we want to make sure we get the ULs as well. Don't want any extra of those around. So the only thing I'm leaving on this one is going to be that BR and the link to add a new subject, because that's actually going to be different between the two pages. And I'll do PHP and then navigation. And we'll need to pass in SEL subject and SEL page. That should work for us. So let's try that, see if that works. Save that. Switch back to our browser. Let's hit the back button until we are on the content page. There we are. Select a subject. What do you know? It still works. And look how much cleaner it is now that we've refactored. All that navigation code has all been broken out, and now we can reuse it. We can reuse it on every single page that we're working with. Now, we've done a lot here, and obviously what we want to get to is a form that's going to go in here that's going to allow us to create a new subject. And we'll do that in the next movie. But before we do, I want to take one last look at this navigation function. Here we are. And I want to show you one other thing that we can do that's extremely useful. Instead of echoing to the browser or to the buffer and outputting it directly from our function, instead, I'm going to have this function not do any display. It's good if you can kind of keep a division between functions which do something, that generate something, and functions which display an output. And maybe I would have a function and its purpose would be just to output. But I'm actually not going to have that happen here. Instead, I'm going to have a variable called output. I tend to use output all the time for this one purpose, so I always know what it means. And every time there's an echo, I'm going to say output and the append equals. So I'm building up a string. It's just like having a content buffer yourself. It's no different than if you were going to build up a buffer and then output it all at the end. So every time I have echo, I'm just going to paste that same thing, that output, and then period equals for append. There we go. And again, and again, and again, and again. And then at the very end, now my function is going to return something. I wasn't returning something before. Now I'm going to return output. What this is going to do is put together one very long string of output and then return it. And so instead of just using navigation and letting it do all of the echoes, now I can just say echo navigation. Or I could catch it in a variable and do something else with it. Maybe I would retain it for some reason. So I'm just going to change both of those pages to now say echo the navigation instead. Save it, and let's try it one last time to make sure we didn't break anything. I'm on the content page. Oop, something did break. I missed one of my echoes in there. Let's see if we can find it real quick. I'll go to functions, and where did I miss it? Here's one I'll take, and it is right here that I missed it, and right here that I missed it. There we go. Now we've built up a successful output string. Let's go back and try it one last time, and we'll reload the page, and it works successfully now. Add a new subject, and nothing is selected because obviously I have a new subject, and maybe I could have it say new subject and have that be selected or something fancy like that. But for now, this is enough. So we spent a lot of time looking at refactoring as we started the new subject page. I want to now dive into the form and really look at building up a form here that we can submit to a page to create a new subject. Let's do that next.